Get ready to be inspired by the great things happening in rural education. The Rural Scoop will bring you new ideas and innovative solutions. We'll dive into education issues and will highlight what's working in your rural communities. You will hear from a variety of educators, administrators, professionals, and others who will provide relevant and engaging content in each episode. And now, serving up the scoop, here's your host, Dr. Melissa Sadorf.
Thank you, Rural Scoop listeners, for joining us again today for part of a series of interviews that we're doing with Teachers of the Year from across the country. We're very excited to have the opportunity not only to brag about these fine educators and all of the things that they're doing, but really to highlight the best practices that they're putting in place in their rural school communities. I'd like to introduce my co-host for this series, Mr. Ty White. Ty is the 21-22 ARSA Teacher of the Year here in Arizona. And this year, he was awarded the National Teacher of the Year for the NREA, the National Rural Education Association. And he was also recently awarded the Teacher of the Year for Arizona's Arizona Educational Foundation. So, Ty, can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi. I am a veteran science teacher in Arizona. I've taught for, 12 years in Wilcox, so 17 years overall. I'm highly qualified to teach math, chemistry, and biology, and I love jumping in at all levels. I've gotten to do a little bit of mentoring with middle school teachers, but my passion is with high school kids. They're a great group to work with. I'm excited because now I get to introduce Lara Belice, who's joining us today from Montana, where she was the 2022 Montana State Rural Teacher of the Year. And I have heard so many stories about what she does in the classroom that I really want to key up the audience for this. I've heard a little bit about the Buffalo Project, and she gets to go to Yellowstone. Man, talk about a place to get to take kids. That's just a wonderful project. And so, Laura, why don't you tell the audience about yourself a little bit?
Definitely. Thank you for having me, Melissa and Ty. It's great to connect with you. I am in an extremely remote area of Montana. It's just 4 miles from the northeast entrance to Yellowstone National Park. It's a year-round resident of about 70 people. And so it's a one-room school that I teach at. It's K through 8. Enrollment can vary. However, I did not start as an educator. I originally am from San Diego, California, and grew up near the ocean. Love the mountains always, so always wanted to get to the mountains, and had a landscaping business for many years in San Diego. It was landscape design and construction business that did well. That wasn't my end. I did not want to stay in San Diego and wanted to do other things. So when I had an opportunity to move to Montana, I did. And then paths took me different places. I did some traveling and ended up going back to school to get my teaching degree in 2014. Obtained my teaching degree in 2018 and have been at rural schools since then for the last 5.5 years.
So that kind of sets us up actually for that first question, because now I've got to ask where you got your teaching degree from, and what was that pathway that you decided you were going to become an educator? It feels like there's so many people saying they've got to run from this profession that's changing so fast, and you're headed the other direction right into the fire. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very untraditional path to becoming an educator. Actually, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I was going to be a teacher, I definitely would have laughed. And if you had told me I was going to become Montana Rural Teacher of the Year, that would have made me laugh even harder. Children and education were just like not part of my life. It was when I was traveling, I had a extensive kind of adventure traveling and volunteering where I went to different countries, and I had a cousin in Calgary, an older cousin who knew a Buddhist Lama who had started a school in a very remote region of the Tibetan Plateau. And she said, hey, if you wanted to go there, I could probably get you to go to this school. And I said, sure, why not? And so I made my way to Beijing and then flew to Xingning, which is the very like northwest corner of the Tibetan Plateau, and took a 27-hour bus ride to Zadu, where the school was located. And I was terrified when they told me I'd be teaching. I had no idea what to do, and nobody spoke any English, and I was supposed to teach these students English. They were Tibetan. The school was there to they wouldn't have been able, the children, to go to school if this school didn't exist, because it also boarded them. The parents lived too far away for students to get to school and return every day. So they lived at the school. There were about 200, anywhere from 6 years old to 18 years old. And they made use of me. I taught all day long. I was exhausted and frazzled, but I loved it. And when I returned after 3 months of being there, I enrolled at the University of Montana Western in Dillon, Montana. Small school, great school for educators. And I obtained my teaching license in January of 2018. Took a mid-year position and been rocking ever since. It's been a good fit.
So I've got to ask, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but I've got to ask you about that story, right? So like in Arizona, you get your credentialing at different levels. Are you in secondary or are you credentialed in elementary?
Right.
And
so
how did you choose that?
Yep. So Montana is a K-8 elementary. And then I got a literacy endorsement as well on top of that, which is K-12th grade, which was the best tool I could have ever gotten for, I'd say, any educator, but especially as remote as I am and being everything, I need those literacy skills to pull out. So I went back to school to get my teaching degree when I was in my late 30s. And then my professors connected with them well. They were more like colleagues, and I was completely focused on school at that time and dug into everything. They tried to steer me towards getting an English language arts high school degree for teaching. However, that's not what I wanted. I want to see the full picture of the child. And even though the youngest ones actually scare me the most, or used to scare me the most as far as teaching, I thought I would do middle school. And that's what I actually, when I got my teaching degree in January of 2018, I took a mid-year position teaching 7th and 8th grade science and social studies in the northwestern part of Montana. And that was great. I love the middle schoolers, and I could easily see why you love high school students as well. They're all fantastic. And yeah, I love the middle schoolers. However, I was stuck only teaching science and social studies, and I wanted to teach everything. I was only seeing students in those subjects. And even though I had small class sizes at the school where I taught, I didn't know what they were like in their other courses. And so I couldn't combine that all to make a complete package of the child. And I get to do that here where I am, not only just 1 year, but multiple years. I've been teaching at Cooke City School for 5 years, and I have an 8th grader graduating who's been with me since I first started. For 5 years, I've seen her grow. And man, I mean, so she can't get away with anything because I know her too well, right? And she knows me too. And we just have a great, we know when we're off. I know when she's off. I know when she's on. I know you just know them. So elementary school has been fantastic. The little ones, oh my gosh, there's no way I'd go back. I would take any grade between K through 12th for sure. But those little ones, their minds are sponges. You have children, Ty, and so they're incredible. And I have to teach combined, lessons at times in the afternoon to meet science and social studies and art and engineering. So the only way I can do it is a whole group lesson. And those kindergarten, first, second graders, they remember the vocabulary, the domain specific vocabulary better than the older students, because they just grasp onto, it's just like learning a new language, those abstract words. It's amazing. But I love it when, I ask them to remember what an lattice is, and the little ones, are explain it clearly, and the other ones, the older students, look at me like I've never, speaking a foreign language or something to them.
So Lara, you've talked a little bit about what attracts you to the rural setting for schooling. Have you ever considered not being rural? I mean, what's the advantage that you have gone with as far as why did you choose a rural setting?
Sure. Initially, the number one is it's where I want to live. I want to live in a rural setting. And so I know if I'm happy where I'm living, it's going to make me happier at work. As well, as a rural educator, like I mentioned, I get to see the whole picture of the child, especially in this community where you can't go unnoticed. And I know what the students are doing on the weekends. I see them. They're literally my neighbors. The playground is in my yard of the teacherage, where the housing that's provided for me. I know what their families do. I see them. We interact. I know the community members. I know who families are involved with. So again, it's that whole picture. And that way I know how to serve that child best, or maybe why they're off. There was a birthday party big barbecue or something. And yeah, It's
an advantage for sure.
Absolutely.
So this has been since you got your teaching credentials, you've taught in Cooke City this whole time?
For 6 months, I was in a different, in the northwest corner. So a different school, still rural. It was K through 8th with about 250 students. So otherwise, I knew I didn't want to stay there. It was still a little bit too big of it. The school was great. It was great to have teachers to lean on and actually interact in a full school setting. However, it wasn't a location where I wanted to live. I wanted to get back to more remote community where I can backpack and ski right out of my doorstep, like my back door, my front door, and take advantage of just knowing this, having those students multiple years. When I first moved to Montana in 2004, I was in another rural community. I wasn't an educator at that time, but I got to see how those 1 and 2 room classrooms operated. I went skiing with them, jumped on the bus, went down to the local ski hill, and it was great. And that type of community as well, where everybody, it makes a difference. Can lean on each other.
So Lara, teaching in a rural setting can often bring some unique challenges and barriers, issues. And
right.
So, you have to be the innovator from your classroom. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered in your rural education setting, and how have you overcome them?
Yes, absolutely. There are challenges. There's daily challenges from everything from frozen water lines for the last 2 winters, where I'm hauling water from the teacherage to the school every recess so we can flush the toilets. From then the boiler system not working because it runs off of water having go through it. So from just no professional services where we are, we're literally, when it's 6 months of the year, the road isn't plowed to the east of us. And so we have to go west through the park. And then to get to a town it's a 2.5 to 3 hour drive one way to get to a normal grocery store, to a doctor, to a dentist, to any services. That's where my superintendent is. And then for 6 months of the year, we have an 1.5 hour drive to get to a town of about 8,000 that does have Walmart and other grocery stores and, a vet and things like that, but, and a hospital. However, so you lean on the community members. It's always first go to the community, even though there's nobody here who's like a plumber or a official electrician. Everybody has tools of the trade, and you know who to ask for. When the tree fell on the school a couple years ago, luckily my car luckily for the school, for us, school could go on because my car stopped the tree first, but it still landed on the roof and then was, hanging out there. And just our local Flathead Electric person who's up here to help, keep our electricity running because we're so remote. He jumped on it, came with his bucket truck and cut it up with some other local guy. And then, I took care of the rest later. And, but those challenges are pretty minor. The biggest challenge by far has been the fluctuation in enrollment. And it just a student or two, depending on what grade level they're coming into and what I'm already teaching and those students' needs, can just completely shift the whole structure of the classroom and what I'm able to do. So I had a couple years ago, I received 3 new students and then a 4th the following year that was a sibling. And I had 5 students that went to 9, and it was, that's like 9 students, but I was teaching 7 different grade levels. And I had 3 students with serious learning disabilities and 1 with a 504 as well. So half of my students basically had learning disabilities. And so where do you get, we scrambled. I about went out of my mind. How am I going to do this? Luckily, I have an amazing ability to change the schedule and shift and see things as, where I can combine, but still there's certain things you have to do, especially if a student has an IEP, an individual education, plan, you have to meet that time. So where do you get somebody else? There's not funding to hire another teacher, plus where are they going to live and where would they come from? Who's going to move here? It's a unique fit. And then where do you even get extra help? It took 6 months to find a paraprofessional, and it ended up being that it was a grandmother who moved to town. She had never worked in a school. She had never worked with children who have needs. And so, and who's going to train her? I have to train her. I'm her mentor. And so, it worked and the students still met their goals and exceeded them because we are so small and we can focus. And I know every movement of them throughout the day. But goodness, how could you sustain that?
Right.
It's not the best. So the biggest challenge has been adjusting to fluctuating enrollment. And then, what if we had been able to hire a teacher and then I had 2 families leave before Thanksgiving this year. It brought me back down to only teaching 4 grade levels, and I didn't need the paraprofessional anymore. I could handle the student, needs. And so if we had hired a teacher, we would have had to retain that teacher due to contracts, but we wouldn't have necessarily needed, could always use another teacher, but so that's most difficult challenge for sure.
Sounds like it just kind of depends month over month, year to year, what you're going to get as far as enrollment.
Absolutely. It had stayed consistent for a long time, around 5 students. And then it depends on the student, where I last year gained another 7th grader, and it didn't matter because I was already teaching all of that and there wasn't any extra that came along. So it just depends how it fits in. Otherwise, if it's a new grade level or if it's younger, we had to shift things entirely. Now, they don't all fit in the van to go on field trips then. So we had to make some grade level changes of who could attend field trips. And it's all right. It made me a better teacher for sure, for just that time that I had. That was crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start with all of that. My first comment is, well, folks, I think we found our most rural teacher so far to date, right?
I believe so.
But you also said something, and I want to go back and prop you up a bit, because don't ever say that's only 9 kids when that's every single subject across 7 or 8 different grades. I mean, that's
It's a lot.
That's 40 plus preps. So that's a lot.
No, and I know, and I say only 9 because, you have classrooms full, and I know other teachers are full, and you have multiple different courses that you're teaching, Ty, that you're responsible for. In those larger schools, you have a shuffle of students that pass through your door for, if you're an English language arts teacher. Yeah, but still,
it's not teaching every subject and every grade level. That's
I get
super
that.
impressive. That's amazing.
Thank you. People ask me how I do it, and I don't. It happens. It's a lot of prep for sure.
Well, it's kind of the framework too for the next question, and you may have already answered it if there's not much to add to this, but I mean, I don't think it is, because it's one thing to say that you're preparing content for all those different levels and those different content areas. I'm making sure, let me know if I drop something off here. You're taking care of the needs of special ed students who have individualized education plans and students with 504 plans. I would wager you're probably driving the bus. I know if you're going on field trips, you're probably driving the bus. I mean, gosh, yes. A one-room schoolhouse means you're the administrator on top of it. There's no principal to send kids to. Good Lord, what aren't you doing?
So I am doing, I'm the janitor. I clean the toilets, I vacuum, I take out the trash. And not only do I take out the trash, I drive it to our local transfer station, because we live where grizzly bears and black bears live, and it has, it's an enclosed transfer station. Yes, the van, I drive it full of kids through crazy weather, school PE. We went to ski PE in February. It was super negative temperatures, but they know Cooke City is super tough, so they allowed us to continue our ski dates. But the van battery went dead. I went to the store after skiing that day, after getting the van jumped a couple of times along the way, and then it was negative 25 outside. Nobody was allowed to help me. But who installed the battery? I do. I installed the battery. I'm the connector of everything with the school. I'm not there. We have a special education co-op through Park County, Montana. And so amazing resource. So a student needs speech or behavioral or something specific. It's through Zoom, but it's remote. There's several hours from us. The students might not even ever meet the teacher in person throughout their career. But they're a fantastic resource, and they manage the special education. But obviously, I'm actually doing the in-school work. I'm the person. If it's literacy, I'm the person.
Services.
Exactly. Gosh, all the invoicing, if there's budgeting, spending ideas, writing grants, organizing field trips, purchasing materials, everything from toilet scrubbers to microscopes to textbooks, seeking out new curriculum, then buying it, and then figuring out how to use it on my own, right? There's nobody to teach you how to use it. Receptionist, I have to stop instruction and answer the phone. Behavior programs, I don't know. It's shoveling snow. I forgot about that. That's just part of my life. It's the snowiest place in Montana, and I shovel it it's snow on the ground here for 7 of the 9 school months. And it's a lot. Yeah. So I get strong mentally and physically. That's actually my least favorite.
When I complain about paperwork, the technology is.
That's my
when
least
I complain
favorite.
about having to do paperwork, that's funny. See, my least favorite is the paperwork. And when I complain about paperwork, I butter up our assistants with chocolate and treats and say thank you and nice thank you cards.
Also, technology, it's just, you never know. It's just frustrating. And there isn't really anybody, and you just get run in circles. Or the state testing we just finished here at school. And so it's hilarious when, I'm the person that's putting the browser on the computers. So I'm the technician, right? But then also when you go to sign in to administer the test, 4 roles come up, and then I'm actually like delivering the test, like reading it aloud while I'm like watching everybody else's like progress on the test too. I'm like, hold on a second, I gotta go like help this person with their test. So yeah, that's what you're doing a lot of jobs, is when you sign into like SBAC testing and you have 4 roles that pop up.
You've talked about some of the challenges that you've had as an educator in your school, but across the country, what are the issues right now in rural education that are really struggles for rural teachers or for rural leaders? What are those things that keep them up at night?
The last school board meeting, and that I had the superintendent was reminding the school board how well Cooke City is doing because we're actually accredited. But that's only because there's just me, and I can take care of every single accreditation as long as I'm checking every box for me. Being a one-room school, I check every box. I'm the counselor, I'm the librarian, I'm every grade level and for all subjects. I think we are the only school in Park County, Montana that's accredited at this time because they can't find certified staff to check that box. They want it. And so what is the issue? Most likely the issue is there's not a livable wage to offer those people to do that job, to like draw them in, and there's not housing. The only reason I am here, besides the fact that I love it and like I want to be in this community, but the only reason that can keep me here to teach at Cooke City School is that, my salary is not great for everything that I do, but I am provided quality housing, not just a beat up house that's I'm going to freeze in, or, it's a good house and it is walking distance to the school. And that makes up, and it makes it a professional wage when I include the housing. And that's what's needed. If you want to have rural educators that are quality educators, you need to offer them a professional wage and make it happen somehow with, if you can make it up with housing, that's a start.
Well said.
Could you repeat that one more time for the people in the back?
Yeah, professional. Teach us, treat us like professionals and pay us like professionals that we are. And do it however you can do it. You need to find a way.
See, that's advocacy work right there. I think you nailed that. So I know you've heard this next question before, and I'm going to encourage you to go off the rails. What would be like that moment in your teaching career that just stands out, your proudest moment, your aha, this is what it's about?
Right. For the rural here at Cooke City, it was within my first year of teaching here. Very quickly, there was no script for me to follow. I was, left with very little as to what to do. And I was a new teacher, right? I had only been under an administrator for 6 months before coming here. And it's a Cooke City's one-room school. And I quickly realized it was like running my independent business that I owned for so many years and excelled at. If I wanted the school to operate, it would operate really well, and I could do basically whatever I wanted to and turn it and shape it into something amazing, as long as I was willing to put in the effort. Same thing with my business. Started from scratch, put in effort, had a vision, and turned it into something that was award-winning. Same thing here. I quickly realized I had the support, after gaining trust with the board members in the community, I had their support. They tested the waters. I used to be a landscaper and living in Montana. I need to have things that grow, especially if I'm in the snowiest place in Montana. So I started with the aeroponic system. You can see it in the background there. And that worked. I had the support. And then I was like, I need soil though. I need to get my hands dirty. So I started researching mountain-worthy greenhouses. I started then realizing I need a compost system, but how do I do that here where there's bears and it's really cold and snowy here all year? And so after researching, I presented my ideas to one of the board members and had support. So I started rocking and rolling with that. Basically, my aha moment was I can shape this school into anything as long as I put in the effort, find the funding, and I have the support of the school board and the community. And I do. I'm very fortunate. We could do a lot of fun things here. It's a good gig if you're willing to put a lot of hours in. But you just pick things that you love, right? I mean, you love your teaching. I love all my teaching. And there's some stuff that we have to do by the books, but most of it we could be like Melissa, you were saying, is you have to be innovative to make it work here. And so gotten real innovative. But having fun along the way.
Expand on that, because it takes me to the next question that we have, which is, what would you tell somebody that was looking to teach and potentially maybe considering a rural school? What would you tell them to pull them into a rural setting?
Absolutely. They need to look for those rural teaching jobs. They should be sought. You need to be careful, though. You need to do your research. You need to make sure it's a good fit for you, that you understand the community. There's places where it wouldn't be, potentially a good fit for where I am and or what the things, that I do. You have to be energized by the community and your parents and your school boards, and your location. So make sure you're going to be happy to live there. Make sure that you don't sell yourself short and that you can have a livable wage. But by gosh, I mean, you make all the impact. It's everything, right? We're not chasing just state or national initiative after initiative. You see what needs to happen for your local place and community and students and families, and then you do it. And because you're rural, you're tough, and you get things done, and you find ways to get things done. You make it happen, and you just do it. Nobody's paying attention because there's so much else going on. We're doing awesome, and that's the other thing. Like, everybody's meeting their needs and exceeding their needs. So it's like, all's good at Cooke City. Just let them do their thing. Yeah, I've had 3 superintendents now, and they're just like, let Lara do her thing. Just let her be. Just make her happy. And that's basically just supporting me.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. A little bit of support goes a long ways, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to close this out by asking you if there's anything else we haven't covered that you'd like our listeners to know.
Yes, and it stems right from that last bit, is that you need to fill your educator's bucket. Saying thank you, doing so much at these rural communities, and it doesn't even need to be a rural community. That is the fuel. It's like we said, it's not the wages. That's not why we're here. Just recognize what your local educators and administrators are doing to make these doors stay open in these places. It's a lot. And it's just a handful of us. It's really just me, a superintendent that's 3 hours away from me, a clerk who's further than that, and 3 school board members who have lives of their own and families and multiple jobs to make their ends meet. We're doing this together. So even if you're not involved in the school in any way, they're still part of the community. If you want to see kids laughing and running around your streets, just say, wow, like, recognize what you're doing. Thank you. It's fuel. It's charges you, supercharge. It's Popeye spinach, right? So
that is good, but I can't let it end there. I'm really sorry. I've got to hear more because your buffalo, your bison project is amazing, and that was a really exciting award you won. And I want you to tell our listeners about it.
So as I mentioned, to be able to meet all the standards of so many different grade levels, the only way to do that is through multidisciplinary units of study that are year long, that are engaging to me, right? And then it's going to be engaging to the students, and it's engaging to the students because it's local. So a couple years ago, I took a course at the Buffalo Ranch, which is in the Lamar Valley of Yellowstone National Park. It's just 35 minutes down the road to the west. And it was two older gentlemen taught the course. And as I'm sitting there for those 4 days, I was like, it was all about bison, everything. One was a biologist and the other was like a professional storyteller and just lover of bison and knew all the history. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is the United States history, but through a bison lens. And like, this is how you teach history especially to my students. We have bison. There was a bison just yesterday in the yard straight across from where I'm sitting right now. And big bulls just come through. They're here year round. And we drive into the park, just 30 minutes into the Lamar. We were there on Thursday with the students and this gentleman who taught that course, Jim Gary. And he spent the day with us in the park, and there's just bison everywhere. There must have been 1,000 that we saw in just one view, and all the babies are on the landscape. So the Bison Lens project is, yes, it's U.S. history, but it's all focused on the bison's history. It goes all the way back to 13,000 years ago to the Anzac site, which is in Park County, Montana. It's just to the north of us. It's the oldest human remains in North America were found there. And these are from Clovis people. They were hunting gigantic bison, the latifrons that were, 9 feet between their horns and massive tools and all this. And then it goes through all the changes, so you have your geology and you have just changes of the landscape to what we come to today to, we did ecology. The bison is so connected. We had the most perfect moment in Yellowstone Park. We're doing at the local post office is our gallery of all the students' artwork. And we're putting up a timeline that's going to be end up being about 20 feet around. And it's going to go from 13,000 years ago to the present and all the key moments of bison history, but like our history, human history and U.S. history. And the final one was one of my 8th graders. She learned about the ecology, the importance of the bison. They eat the grass on the landscape and they poop. Those bison patties make great homes for insects. The northern flicker woodpecker loves to eat the insects along the edge of the meadow at the forest where the forest meets the meadow. And so she has a flicker and that's in a cavity. And there's another tree cavity that a flicker's made. And those flickers are there because those insects are there. But flying squirrels only use flicker cavities because they're just the right size to have a nest, but they're super particular. They sleep in one and then they use the other one to poop. And so then there's a dung beetle who has evolved just to use flying squirrel poop in these cavities. And so that's just one example of the ecology. You remove that bison, all those other things trickle apart. They're a keystone species. So we were in Yellowstone Park on Thursday with Jim Gary, who kind of spurred this whole thing with his class that I took from him. And we went for a little walk. And what did we come across? We were right on the edge of a meadow. There's bison poop all around us. And I saw a flicker fly to a dead aspen tree. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no way. We worked our way around and there was that flicker digging out a cavity right at the edge of a meadow with bison poop all in the foreground. It was the perfect teaching circle moments. And we've had a bunch of other ones like that this year with our Bison project and our field trips. Even that 8th grader was speechless. She was just like, couldn't believe this was happening. Her picture had come to life. It was pretty awesome.
Well, that's a big idea, is that people have this mindset that rural communities are deficit models, and they're not. When you can recognize those local assets, amazing things can happen.
Yeah, and all that knowledge, if you engage those students in one thing, it's going to transfer to others. And so that ecology, like I was talking to a student who's, going to be moving into a different ecosystem when she graduates from here. And she's been here for 2 years, and she was telling me she's learned so much about wildlife in those 2 years that she's been here, which, melted my heart, of course. But also I told her, you're going to take that same knowledge. You're going to find the bird that is the flicker in a different ecosystem. I don't care if you go to South America or, to anywhere. It's going to, some rainforest, there's going to be similarities. And that's what you want. You want that engagement so it sticks and then it transfers to something else. And we can do that because we know our students so well and we can connect them to things. So no, definitely not a deficit model. If anything, it is the model to turn towards. We need to know our students. Yeah, we have to engage them.
And the assets where we live, for sure.
Absolutely, making use of it.
Laura, thanks for taking the time to spend it with us today. I know it's late where you are, so we really appreciate the conversation.
Oh, thanks for listening. Obviously, you can tell I don't get to talk to too many people about the educators world, so it's nice to have you in the classroom with me. You should come and visit.
I would love to. Yeah. Might have to fight the snow.
I think I just heard an invitation.
Yeah, it's good to connect. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you both.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you to Trainual for sponsoring the Rural Scoop. Trainual is the #1 software for process documentation and employee manuals. It puts everything into one simple, searchable system that is easy to navigate, is clearly organized, and is simple to access. It's perfect for schools and even entire school systems. If you're using something like a binder or a Google Doc, Trainual offers a better way. You can design your training manual to function as a learning module and assign different material to groups like classified staff or certified teachers, departments, or even committees. Trainual can also help your continuation plans as well. For example, your chemistry teacher can log how they've organized the storage room, making it easier for the next person who takes that job. Trainual makes your employee handbook easy to delegate, easy to consume, and easy to search, and just, overall easier to run your school. Listeners of the Rural Scoop get 10% off their first 12 months by using offer code RuralScoop. When you sign up for your free trial, just enter Rural Scoop, one word, as a promo code, and it'll automatically apply. Just go to trainual.com to get started. Thank you so much for listening to the Rural Scoop. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, or even leave us a comment. And be sure to follow on Twitter at Dr. Sadorf. That's Dr_SADORF, so that you never miss a new release. You can also check out previous episodes of The Scoop wherever you get your podcasts. Production support for the Rural Scoop is provided by Chattanooga Podcast Studios. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. See you next time for more great discussions about rural education.